In the year of 2020, it seems like a new camera is pretty much being announced almost daily at this point, but there still hasn't been a camera that has come out around that $2,000 price point that I feel even comes toe to toe with what the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K and 4K for that matter really give you in the realm of shooting video. So I decided to go ahead and try to tackle that pesky issue again, which is what I've heard is like the one reason why most people decide not to go with the Pocket 6K, and that is solving the battery problem. But this time, instead of going with my traditional system, which includes a whole rig and rails and ultimately a V-mount system, going with the solution that Blackmagic themselves figured would be the best choice, and that's this guy. What's good, creative fan? Brandon Washington here. And first of all, if you're brand new to the channel, definitely consider hitting that subscribe button, because this channel is all about filmmaking gear, tips, and tutorials. But in today's video, we are taking a look at this guy here. This is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera Battery Grip. That's right, this is Blackmagic's very own battery grip solution. Now, I know what a lot of you guys have been thinking. Didn't this thing come out a long time ago? And you're absolutely right. In fact, this thing came out actually not too long after the 6K did, but not too many people have really been talking about it. I personally went on YouTube to try to find a couple reviews and to hear what other people have thought about this thing, and I honestly couldn't find that many great videos. Now, sure, a couple of different people talked about it and why they chose to pick one up, but no one was really giving any real world use cases for how this thing would perform on an actual set. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to review this, guys, to let you guys know if this is something that you should be considering for your Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera setup. So let's kick this thing off and first talk about build quality. Now, this thing is built specifically for the Pocket 6K, and it is built very well. Now, I will say there are a lot of little bits of plastic on this guy, but everything feels really solid, especially once you get a set of batteries in here. As you guys can see, it has a top piece here, which is actually used to slide into the Pocket 6K or 4K for that matter. And then it has a nice little thread, which actually threads it to the camera body, so that way you can't lose it. Now, one thing you guys maybe didn't know was that you can actually take the door off of your 4K or 6K, and on this guy here, it actually gives you a spot to hold it. You're actually gonna be able to hold that inside the door itself. So when you actually open this guy up, you'll see that there's a nice little empty slot right here, and this is so that you can actually store the door from your Pocket 4K or 6K so you don't end up losing that or misplacing it somewhere in your bag. Now, personally, I love that extra little detail that was actually built into the unit itself. Another thing that's really nice about the way this thing is built is all of the great little gripping features that you have on the 6K itself is also going to be found on the battery grip. One thing that I love about when using this battery grip here is that it kind of takes me back to using like my 1DX Mark II. It kind of has that bigger DSLR field, and if you're someone who loves to run and gun shoot, this kind of gives you that feature back onto the Pocket 6K or 4K. Now, I know the whole reason why you'd even be considering this setup is how does it actually help with battery life? Well, first, let's talk about the batteries that it actually uses. This thing can hold 2 of these Sony NPF or NF or L series batteries, whatever they're called. I'll have the official title up here. But basically, this thing stores 2 of these batteries. Now, to me, the one giant benefit with this is the fact that these batteries are super inexpensive. I mean, you can get these batteries for next to nothing with dual battery chargers over on Amazon. In fact, I'll have links to these and everything else I'm talking about down below in the description. But these batteries are super inexpensive. Now, the one big downside is if you already invested in a ton of Canon batteries, you can't get this battery pack to actually work with those Canon LP batteries. You can only use these Sony batteries. The other thing is that when your actual camera is using these batteries, you'll actually see that the Blackmagic 6K or 4K displays 2 batteries on the screen. And something that I've noticed is that the way that it sort of works is that it starts to deplete one battery, and then when one battery is sitting somewhere between 20 to 10% left, it's very unclear, it actually switches over to the other battery and then drains that one of 80%. And then from that point, they both pretty much go red, and now you're just kind of going back and forth between the two batteries. But the one thing that I do like is that if you are in a situation where you're trying to decide, should I swap a battery now before this next scene takes place? Like for example, if you're shooting a wedding and something's about to happen and you want to do a quick swap on one of the batteries, it does dictate whether you're using battery from slot 1 or slot 2, which is labeled on here. So that way you can decide if you want to swap that battery before the next scene happens. Another thing that was a little unclear, just to kind of make it all clear, when you actually buy this, it doesn't come with any batteries, unlike when you buy the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. So I do strongly recommend that if you are considering picking up one of these guys, that you go about picking up a ton of batteries to go with it. Now, with that being said, how long do these batteries actually last? Well, it's kind of unclear, and here's the best way I can put it. So in my different use cases, I took out my camera and I shot it shooting videos where I was doing CrossFit stuff, where I was shooting all day on the actual batteries. I went out and actually then also shot like some commercial work with it, where it was kind of off and on type stuff, and then obviously some event coverage. And here's pretty much what it comes down to. Blackmagic says that this thing will extend your battery life on your camera for up to 2 hours. And that's pretty accurate if you're filming in 1080p. See, that's one thing about the Pocket 6K. See, the Pocket 6K is an amazing camera, but a lot of people say that you can get battery life anywhere from 45 minutes down to 30 minutes. And I figured out that whenever shooting in 6K or really 4K or higher, the camera chews up a lot more power, which ultimately means you deplete your batteries faster. So here's what I would say. If you're shooting with this thing, if you're shooting in 1080p, you're gonna get the recommended or the labeled 2 hours of record time, which is fantastic. However, if you are gonna be shooting in 4K or 6K, I found that you really only get about maybe an hour to maybe an hour and like 10 to 15 minutes, especially when shooting in like 6K Blackmagic RAW. You're really only gonna be able to get about maybe an hour out of this thing. However, if you're shooting in 4K, you're gonna get like a little bit more towards an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. Now, obviously that is way better than the kind of original battery life on this thing of 35 minutes. But the question I have to ask myself then is, well, does that really work for the way I wanna work? I mean, like I said before, I typically like to have my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera like completely caged out. Like, in fact, I actually have one back there that's completely caged out all the time. And that thing works off of V-mount. However, if you are in a situation where you need to go run and gun, I do like the fact of how easy this is to attach. Another nice little extra bonus that they did is on the bottom here, you'll actually see that you have 2 threads. So if you're using this on a tripod and you actually want to run 2 threads into it, you absolutely can for just better security when using this. But I will say that if you are using the 6K, this works out really, really well. I mean, the 6K's battery life is even worse than the 4K. And don't get me wrong, I love my 4K, I still use it. But the 6K has kind of become my more go-to camera recently. And I have found that this thing just chews up battery life. And so having something like this as an attachment is an amazing option. Now, before you click off this video because you think I'm sold on this guy, let me show you one more thing. So you might have seen this guy floating around on the internet. This is another Blackmagic battery grip, but it's not made by Blackmagic. I found this thing on Amazon and I found this thing on eBay, and this thing is really cheap. I mean, like super cheap. I think in fact it's actually going on sale on Amazon for like less than $30 possibly. But the thing that makes a lot of people excited about this guy is the fact that it actually can hold 3 batteries. And in fact, this actually holds 3 of the Canon LP batteries. Now, before you run off and you go look for this and you come across this, I had to let you guys know, this thing is cheap. I mean, it is cheap plastic. It feels like cheap plastic. Honestly, it feels like somebody 3D printed this thing. And I have found that this thing's battery readout on the camera is absolutely awful. On top of that, I'm always afraid that it's gonna break or chip. And so if you see this thing floating around on the internet, I bought it so you don't have to. So make sure that if you come across this thing, unless you're just like in a super pinch for money and you need extra battery life, then I guess, you know, do whatever's best for you. But honestly, if you call yourself a professional and you're going out on a professional gig, I would probably try to stay clear of this guy and really just go with the Blackmagic official one. But there you have it, guys. There is your awesome video on batteries. Sexy topic, right? Yeah. But thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you guys have extra questions for me about the Pocket 6K, 4K, or the battery grip, just leave those down in the comments down below. I'll do my best to answer those for you. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you. Links to everything down below in the description. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.